So this is a clock that we've revisited a few times over the past couple of years on my channel. This is an 1840, I think it's 1845 to 1846 or 7 Chauncey Boardman clock. This is an OG clock. It's called an OG clock because this is an OG molding. It stands for, it's just a, it doesn't stand for anything. It's just the type of shaping tool that the mill would have used to create the molding. So anyhow, this clock is a sad sack, to say the least. It needs a lot of work. A couple of things are wrong with it. The mechanism is in pretty rough shape. In fact, I'm going to show you that in a minute. The mechanism is in pretty bad shape. It's been worked on by many people who weren't really clocksmiths or horologists. So it's kind of rough. It's bent up in a few places. This support needs to be replaced. It is damaged here pretty badly, and I glued this piece on here just so I could hold the face on just for now until I fix it. The door has a chip right here in the veneer. You can see that pretty clearly, I think. Let's see if I can get more light. Oh, that's a little bit more light. Not much. How's that? Better. The case has an issue with the veneer down here. This is all got to be replaced. All that veneer. It has venereal disease. Okay. Got the winding key, all the hardware here in the bag. The weight hooks. I've got the weights. I've got it all. I just had been looking for another clock similar to this one to repair it. I needed parts. I need lots of them. I need to replace the mirror. The silver coating is coming off on the bottom. It just looks bad. I might just leave the mirror alone. It is original to the clock after all. What other condition issues do we have here? It is not supposed to be a wall hanging clock, but I mistook it for one. It isn't, which is why I've got the weights out of it. It should be on a shelf, and there's really no other way to hang this wall. It needs to be on a shelf. So, I had been looking for a clock similar to this one to kind of salvage a few little bits and pieces, mainly for the mechanism. And remind you, this is a Chauncey Boardman clock. It is one of many clockmakers from Connecticut who worked in Seth Thomas's shop as an apprentice. Chauncey Boardman, his shop was in business, I don't recall what years, but he started out making woodwork clocks using the same OG case in around 1845. Fun fact, no, I'm sorry, before 18, I think it was 1830s. But quick fun fact, this is one of the first brass clocks ever made, basically. Because brass clocks, and my dates could be wrong here, didn't really come into the mainstream until around the mid-1840s, which is when this clock was made. So I was in an antique shop looking at a couple of antique fans. In fact, I had purchased this Handy Breeze and a similar sized Zero fan made by Bursted Electric. And I happened to browse, and I found a very similar clock to the one I've got. I'm going to show you that right now. Here it is. I basically hit the lottery when I found this clock because let me explain. The OG clocks themselves are a dime a dozen. They're really not worth a lot, even in good shape. But they are a dime a dozen. But trying to find a clock from the same clockmaker that isn't Seth Thomas, who's one of the biggest, but finding one from the same damn shop is just, and from the same time period, with the same options, it's just difficult. It's not likely. But, nevertheless, look what I found. This is a Chauncey Boardman brass clock from the same time period. This is actually about 2 years newer, maybe. And I can tell by the address on the label back here. See, Elihu Gear, who printed the labels for the Chauncey Boardman Clock Company, in addition to Seth Thomas, probably did a dozen to a billion different Connecticut clockmakers, did all their label printing, but he moved his shop several times over the course of his career, and by looking at the address, or the address of his shop, you can determine roughly when the clock was made. And this one is actually, his shop was located on 1 State Street in Hartford, Connecticut. On that clock, his address, which dates this one, by the way, to about 1847. This one, his address was on 26 State Street, Hartford, Connecticut. It was an earlier production. Okay. I've already done some disassembly to kind of evaluate what I just spent what I consider to be a great deal of money on, for something that needs so much work. So let's take it from the top. This clock has similar issues to the case. Actually, it's even worse because it's on the side here. The chipping on the veneer is on the side, on the front, but there's no veneer damage to the door frame at all. It's perfect. The door frame is absolutely perfect. The 2 supports for the mechanism are perfect. And they still have the hooks, the little iron hooks that hold the faceplate on. This is what they look like. Actually, this is steel, but regardless, it's still intact. These could be replacements. This clock had been worked on, like mine. It had been worked on by many different people over the years. The last person to work on this clock did more damage than good. Let me point that out real quick. Because on the mechanism, this is actually the one from my clock, but here we go. This mechanism, look at how bent up the striker is. It's just mangled. I mean, it works, but it's mangled. The pins that they used weren't correct. The iron pins, 2 iron pins are missing. The 2 on the top, and they were replaced with finishing nails, which don't belong on this by any way, shape, or form. They do not belong here. The mechanism is generally dirty. It needs a good cleaning. Full disassembly and a good cleaning with some steel wool, maybe some WD-40. That may not be what clock makers use, but that's what, it works. It's brass, it works. I use quadruple zero steel wool and WD-40. I'm very new to the clock repair hobby. Just something that I just, fell into. I won't get into that right now. But the good part is the 2 plates are in good shape. This one's got a little bit of bending, but I can straighten it out. It's not a big deal. It's not as bad as mine. Not nearly. The pivots aren't that worn out. They're worn, but not to a point of needing to be rebushed. Whereas mine, I had to put bushings in everywhere if I were to continue on with it. But my point is, I found the exact duplicate mechanism. I've compared the mechanisms side by side, and they are identical. They are completely identical. I lucked out. I really did. Because a lot of different clock makers use different patterns when they have the brass plates cut out. And what makes the Chauncey Boardman different is it has these gravestone-looking indentations or punches, punch-outs, knockouts, whatever, in the back. You know, every other clockmaker has their own, you know, signature appearance, I guess. It shows no signs of ever being rebushed, so it's never been properly rebuilt. But I mean, it does have its share of wear. I'm looking at the ratcheting mechanisms, and they show a lot more wear than the ones on my existing mechanism. You know, the teeth are kind of rounded a little bit, so I'm going to probably cannibalize the two and make one good, you know, one good running mechanism. But I have everything I need to do that. It's all here. It's all here. Mine was in very bad shape, and at least I found one that's good. I'm going to keep all the parts. No parts will be thrown out in this project. Nothing, because they can't be replaced. Once they're gone, they're gone. You know, none of the parts, even if they're bad, aren't getting thrown out. Let's look at the face plates. Not face plates, the clock face. Now, this is my original face. It has a lot of missing paint. It's missing more paint now than it ever has before. I should include a picture of what this looked like when I got it. But the paint has been coming off on its own without me even intervening. It just falls off. And there's not a damn thing I can do about it. It's lead paint, and it's 160 something years old. You know, so that's just... Oh, please stop ringing my fucking phone. Anyway. This is the faceplate that came with this clock. It's in better shape overall. It's not warped or bent, whereas this one is actually warped pretty badly, or it was. So it's in better shape overall. It still has the brass grommets, which is a nice touch. And they're just placed in and they're kind of riveted in there actually. A lot of paint from the shop that painted it. It just sort of slathered everywhere. But it's all there. I'm probably going to use it just the way it is. I don't like the idea of getting an aftermarket or reproduction face. I want to keep it wood because I could. I don't know. I'll have to do something about it. Maybe I can practice on the worst one and try to refinish it myself, and maybe hire a graphic artist to paint in all the numbers. But that could be very costly unless they want to do it pro bono. Okay, so what are we going to do? Oh, one more thing. The glass. Yes, this is what I wanted to bring up. Now, this is the glass that came out of this clock. It has more defects in one piece of glass than I have ever seen in my life. It makes me wonder if it's reproduction and it deliberately was made to look like that. And I'll tell you why I'm suspecting it in just a little bit. So that's the clock face glass. Okay, we're going to keep that. We're not going to damage it. But here's the mirror that came out of this sucker. This mirror is so heavy. It weighs a ton. But look at how thick it is. Jesus. This mirror is too heavy for this door. Somebody put this in there. They had it cut and put it in. And I think I know when that was done. On the back, it says, there's actually a date. Something 19th, 1907. And it was made by the Boston something patent silvering. Boston process something patent silvering. So this was a replacement piece that is so thick, it should not be on that door. And the other thing is, the glass wasn't glazed in, it was held in by furring strips. But they were put in a long time ago because the furring strips were nailed in with iron nails. These are handmade iron nails. So, I believe this clock was maybe damaged at one point, and they replaced at least they replaced the mirror. Maybe not the face glass, but the mirror was replaced, and they used the wrong glass first of all, but they didn't use glazing. They used furring strips, so that doesn't belong there. Anyway, my phone won't shut up, so I have to go. Stay tuned for the progress on this deal. I'm going to do something with it. I'm not sure what yet, but I have a lot of work ahead of me. Definitely will be a mixture of these two. I'm going to find the best of each part and use the best I have. I mean, and I don't think it's going to really kill the value because it really wasn't worth much to begin with. So, if anything, I'll improve the value. Oh, one more thing. I'm going to be using the oldest clock case. That one requires the least amount of work as far as veneer work, and so it'll be less challenging for me because I've never done veneer. But I'm going to be using this door and that case. I figure, I mean, the color doesn't match, but that's okay because I'm going to be refinishing the whole clock, and it'll be refinished in that darker mahogany finish. So definitely stay tuned. Don't expect anything soon, but I will be updating this.